Okay, we are live with a special emergency broadcast. It's 1:05 p.m. and we have Rachel in the house, Rachel Smith, realtor extraordinaire. And
Hello,
are you guys still
hello.
building places too, or?
Well, I am
Okay,
solo.
okay,
So, yes, in fact, I actually just did a rehab in downtown Frederick,
okay.
which Maryland is a big city that's growing with lots to do there.
Let me pull this out.
Yeah, let me get adjusted
Just
here.
so that you can.
So, yeah, just did a
relax.
historic home, 1900s brick row home there. So
Okay,
that was a good return. That was fun. But
okay,
yeah, I'm still doing the Remax realtor thing.
okay, okay. So did you just break some news here?
I did.
Did you just say?
I kind of ran on, the show.
Did
Hello,
you-
everybody.
Did you just say that you're on the market?
I'm not on the market. I'm on the market for myself, but I moved actually back to Mount Airy.
Okay, Mount Airy. Okay.
I did. The kids and I.
Okay.
And yeah, happy doing my thing, back in my little routine.
Okay.
Back here with Craig, the OG,
and
This
Carlos.
is our main, right?
Carlos, a Wrench Gang member. He says, "Hello, Rachel and Craig. Great to see you." I
Hi.
haven't seen Carlos for a while. Carlos, you need to keep us updated in the chat, and if you can pop in and say hi. I sent the link in case anybody wants to join the
Yeah.
show.
Okay.
They can pop in. Okay, so you kind of caught me off guard here. This is
I
news.
apologize. Surprise, surprise.
And but I do want to hear about the place in downtown Frederick
So
that
the
what did
place-
you do?
So flipped it. Essentially, it was an investment property.
When did you buy it? Let's start there.
Last summer.
Okay.
So the rates were still 5, 6s.
Okay.
Right now, this is investment property, so that works a little bit different when you're using hard money and my
Okay.
own funds. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the camera
No.
talking.
We're good. We're good.
However, it was still a good market. Sold it. It was the highest price point on 7th Street, which is not a very renowned territory.
Okay.
There might be a little bit of gentrification happening in Frederick.
Okay.
But sold it for the highest ever property that's been transferred.
And so,
on
what
that
did you do to
street.
the property once you acquired
Gutted it.
Just a lot of work.
Yeah. So this is a row home, kind of how
Okay.
you see those,
Yep.
the two together, the duplex style.
Brick, all brick or not?
All brick.
Okay.
1910.
Okay.
Gutted it. It was 2 bedrooms essentially. It was very odd. They had because they didn't really have bathroom indoor. It was
Okay.
very. So we
Okay.
added another bedroom.
Okay.
And
Did you have to do a bump out or something, or how'd you do that?
No, I will tell you, dealing with the Historical Society, I am now a pro. So if you're ready to invest in downtown Frederick but scared of the Historical Preservation Committee, I've got you. I've got it in.
Okay.
I had to rebuild a porch twice because redoing the dilapidated porch, we took away too much. So we needed a
Okay.
separate permit for it.
Okay.
But it's been an adventure and it's been great. So a good
Prefect Dan
return.
says hello. You know Brianna. She says hello.
I see her on TikTok all the time. I get so excited.
Okay, there
to
you
see
go.
her. Hi, honey.
All right. And so you did all this work to
Yeah.
it. New kitchen and everything?
New kitchen. We did the retro appliances, left some exposed brick. We were able to salvage some of the original hardwood floor.
Do they require that, or you just did that to
Historical
keep
Preservation Committee
even inside?
is exterior.
Okay, there you go.
Windows
so you just
count.
did that to make
Windows, roof.
to make it more attractive to
Correct,
a buyer
to
that
sell.
wants that
Yep.
that look.
Yeah, that was kind of my little design scheme thing.
Sure.
And then started the project on Mount Airy House, which is one of my investment properties that I'm.
So now, when did you acquire that one?
Summer as well.
Okay, and are you working on it now?
I'm working on it and living in it. So I'm giving myself about a year. It wasn't the plan. It was just to flip it.
Okay.
Seller financing is a good thing, guys, if you're ever curious about investments and wanting to purchase real estate. Seller financing is
I might do that. I might be able to do that with this place
to market, and get a lower rate. So I've picked up properties doing that before, and it's usually pretty good. But bought that one ready to flip it because 21771, great values there. There's some development that's coming. So reason why we sold to kind of get away from the building, and then life happens, but also the reason why we bought for the investment. And so I'm giving myself like a year and we'll decide
Okay.
Do we keep it? Do we rent it? Do we sell it?
And now, how many bedrooms
Do
is
we
that
build
place?
on? It's a little cottage, 1947.
Okay. So it's frame?
It's done.
Is it frame construction?
It's brick.
Yeah, it's
cinder
brick.
block. So
Okay.
it's cinder block all the way up to the attic.
With
And
a
then
brick on the,
brick.
so it's full masonry construction, what we
Correct.
would call
All
that.
brick. Yes.
I love it.
I love it
I
too.
love that. Yeah.
I love it too.
On a Bitcoin standard, we'll get back to that.
Okay.
We'll get back to building things right. That's
Yeah,
one of the
I would
benefits.
like to do
That's
that.
where we're headed with it. Okay, so let's do a quick update on Frederick Real Estate, and then you've got some questions for me. What's going on with Frederick Real Estate right now?
Frederick Real Estate, I don't have any stats in front of me. I
Frederick
could probably
County,
throw
the
them
whole
up.
county.
Frederick County, I like to do Frederick, Montgomery, Carroll, Howard is kind of my center base there. Still seeing pockets of bidding war, still seeing multiple offers, but then we're also seeing more now price improvements.
Okay.
Price reductions,
I love
price modifications. So I think some of the sellers that were trying to ride that high back from 2020 essentially into
Okay.
2023, I need to come down to reality.
By the way, the car market is really crashing.
Okay, good, because
It's
I'm
really
ready to
coming
buy
down
a
to
new
earth.
one.
Yeah,
But
it's
I'm
a
trying to
buyer's
wait.
market big time.
Okay.
So
Well,
so
we'll
that
see.
might be proceeding. Of course, I'm planning on now selling next November, because
I wanted to ask you.
I extended the lease until next
Good.
November for my tenant.
Good.
And so
Did she do okay, or
we got,
for
everything's
the
fine.
hurricane?
It's in
'Cause you
Sarasota.
were- yeah.
Yeah, where the
okay.
hurricane hit, and the house
Okay.
is fine.
All right, good.
So funny how it is when you have a well-built house, how it holds up. But and also that community is designed to withstand hurricanes.
Okay.
Because what they did, it's a golf tennis community.
Okay.
They did some mounds like to take the wind and deflect it over the houses. And also the houses are fairly close. They're detached houses, but they're close, and they have a wall in between them that is very sturdy. All these things break the wind.
Yep.
Right. And so the house next to you breaks the
majority of
wind.
what came was wind.
Exactly.
this past
Exactly.
hurricane
And
versus
so, and of
flooding.
course it's at about 20 feet as elevation. So it's plenty
Oh.
high enough to not get storm surge. Right. So, so yes, the house fared fine.
Good.
Don't believe what the media says that Florida was wiped out. It wasn't wiped out. Trailer parks were wiped out.
Yeah.
That always happens.
Well, it seemed more like the Carolinas that got a taste of
North
Halloween
Carolina.
primarily.
Yeah, North Carolina. My sister has a place, in
Is she
Western
okay?
North Carolina. Her place fared fine.
Okay, good.
But around her, a lot of devastation. And, the problem with those areas of Appalachia is they built everything along the rivers. Okay, all the towns are along the rivers
Of
because they're
course.
in they're in the
evolution.
valley,
Yeah.
and that's where they have the railroad tracks.
That's where the
and
roads
all
are.
that stuff.
Yep.
And so when you get a flood,
Mountains.
when you get a flood that is unusual amount of H2O, which is what we had, and it had been saturated by a couple days of rain before that hit. So the ground was already saturated.
Correct. Yeah, and it
So-
was like dry to begin with, wasn't it? And then it had that rain, like you
It
said.
had a lot
But
of
then
rain for like
again-
2 days, and then the hurricane came in and dumped on them.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And so it was the perfect storm, right?
Yeah, it's sad.
But I'm watching these videos, and they're rebuilding the roads right back at the same place.
I've been seeing clips here and there.
They're just going to rebuild everything back in the same spots. Why don't they go a little bit further up the hill away from the river? They can do it. They can cut into and cut a road in higher up and so on.
I don't know.
But I guess it's just more expensive.
That's what I was just thinking.
Right.
It's probably a time
and so
cost thing.
and so they think, okay, this only happens every 100 years or so, because it happened again about 100 years ago.
That
The same
seems to
thing
be
happened.
A funny cycle. We can maybe chat about 200-year cycles.
Yeah. So
right?
so I guess that's their judgment call, is let's just rebuild it. We know it's in 100 years this is going to happen again, but let's do it anyway.
And I think they just need to get back to life so quickly.
Yeah. The Goths is in the house. And Brief Fit Dance is still loyal to Craig. There you go. Everybody's loyal to Craig, except for one crazy guy on Facebook, which we'll read about in a minute.
Yeah, I want to hear about
Okay,
that.
so you had some questions for me.
I do.
Okay.
I am such a big fan of real estate, which in turn is an investment, which, you can't really.
Property.
Correct. Yeah. But however, evolution, things change. And if
Mhm.
you're going to be a wise investor, would behoove you to explore other investments and assets outside of my biggest thing is real estate.
Yeah.
I think what really also opened my eyes is the gentleman that you've had on before, what the British
British hodl.
Huddle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hearing him, and at first I'm like, "Meh, real estate's number one." But then it's like, think it through, Rachel, and having an open mind and listening to other people that have this insight, not only in digital currency, but that's a big thing, but then
Mhm.
primarily Bitcoin,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
seems to be
Yeah.
leading the way,
Yeah.
leading the
Yeah.
charge here.
I think that the first thing that I would say is you need to do your homework. That's what I tried to tell this gentleman on Facebook.
Well, what is Bitcoin? Give me a quick little synopsis for our
Okay,
viewers.
so the
blind.
whole point,
What's Bitcoin?
okay, the whole point of Bitcoin is to separate money from the government and or big corporations. It was to create something that is decentralized, that is designed in such a way that it can't be captured. It
Correct.
can't be controlled. It can't be censored. It can't be confiscated.
It's
Okay?
custodied by.
So if you custody it yourself and you don't give people your secret words, let's say you have 12 words that are your secret words and they have to be in a particular order. If you keep those words safe, nobody can get your Bitcoin. Okay, so that's the anti-confiscation element of it.
So
Okay,
you're the only one with the key. But if you're like me and need a little help with
Mhm.
custody, you can have a third party like Coinbase
You
or
can
kind
you
of act
can
like
go
a bank.
you can
for
go
your
you can
Bitcoin.
go really safe route for people that want to just get exposure is buy one of the Bitcoin ETFs, and we'll talk about
ETFs,
those
yeah.
in a minute.
Perfect.
BlackRock has gotten
I
heavy into it,
know,
and
which is a
so
pretty big sign.
and so you just buy shares of that, and you've got direct exposure to Bitcoin. But again, we have a saying in the Bitcoin community: not your keys, not your coins. So if you bought shares in the Bitcoin trust, they've got the Bitcoin, but you don't. So what happens if the government decides, hey, we don't like this thing, we're going to confiscate all the Bitcoin from BlackRock?
Which is a question I want to get your input
Okay.
and feelings on.
Okay, so
that
that's why one of the core features of Bitcoin is you can self-custody it. Okay. And wrap your head around this. This is the first time in human history that we've had an asset, a hard liquid asset, that you can actually self-custody, that if you do it properly, nobody can take it away from you. Think about this. If you had gold back in the day, where are you going to put it? You're going to bury it in your backyard? They're going to come with metal detectors.
Correct.
Okay, they can certainly confiscate gold, and they've done it. They did it in the 30s.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so real estate, all they have to do is get a judge to say it's no longer your house,
Yeah.
and guess what? They just took your house.
It's funny the power judges have.
Okay, so try to name one asset, even cash, even $100
I was just gonna
bills.
say, even if you were to take cash or coins and stuff it under your mattress,
they're going to come take it.
It could burn. Yeah, they could
They
still
can come take
raid
it.
your house.
They can confiscate it. It's called confiscation, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can't confiscate the Bitcoin. You have to voluntarily give it to them.
You have to
That's
give
a
access.
huge difference.
Because again, Bitcoin, it's digital. You're not actually receiving, just for people that I may be sharing this with on social media, it's not an actual coin. It is a digital currency.
It lives on the
custody
blockchain.
that can be traded as a currency.
That you make a very good point. It lives on the blockchain. It's not living with me. It's on the blockchain. All I have with my secret words is the ability to move that, in effect, the control of that, not really move it. It still just stays on the blockchain, but I'm handing over control of that Bitcoin to somebody else.
Correct.
That's all I'm doing, is I'm saying, I no longer have control over this Bitcoin. Rachel now does. Once I do that, and this is very important, once it's in your control, there's nothing I can do to get it back. So let's say I'm a merchant. Let's say I'm a merchant and I'm selling something. Yeah, let's say I'm a merchant and I'm selling something to somebody.
Okay.
And they use a credit card. There can be chargebacks. They can challenge. They can do it. There can be all kinds of things. With Bitcoin, once it's done, it's done. It's a bearer instrument. once it goes from me to
I got a
you,
couple things like that.
it's yours. Okay.
No, yes.
All right. So that is a big thing. That's a big
It's a
deal
power thing.
for billions of people around the globe that have had things confiscated in third world countries and dictatorships, you know, whatever, you name it, right? All right. Now let's say that the government debases your currency. Let's say that the government just prints a whole bunch more money. Now all of a sudden your money is worth less money.
Correct. Yes.
They've in effect confiscated part of your purchasing power.
So that's what makes Bitcoin such a hard asset, is that what there is
21 million hard cap.
That's it.
That's it. And more than 19 million have already been produced.
As we both agree, in any market, whether it's luxury items, houses, or Bitcoin, supply and demand.
Correct.
When the supply is nil, and you'll have to explain a brief synopsis of the halving, but that's it. So that's what makes it such a valuable asset.
That's the next tenet that is huge. Because the first one was it can't be confiscated. It can't be. It can't be. They can't take control of it. Okay, they can't cancel it. They can't stop it. Okay, all of these things are true. They've tried for 15 years and they failed. Okay, they being big corporations, governments, etc. Even China tried to stop it, tried to kill it. They couldn't do it. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing you're talking about is 21 million units. Now, wrap your head around this. Name an asset, any asset, that if it gets valuable enough, they can't make more of it. Name something.
Me.
You're right. That's about it. That's about it.
That was good. I was quick on my toes on that one.
That is it.
But that's a good example.
You know what people usually say?
Because you can't
you know what people usually say? They usually say real estate.
No, real estate.
And when they say that, you know what I tell them?
Dubai.
No, yeah, and when I tell them, 1/3 of Manhattan is man-made.
Because that used to be my argument. Is
they keep adding on to Manhattan,
which in essence is true, especially pertaining to location, right? You're not going to add another Frederick extension. However, you can make more, land when it does.
They extend it, and they've done this.
Again,
they did this. Where's that place where they do the Formula One, where all the rich people go with their yachts and all that, and they have the Formula One. Anyway, I'm not thinking of the place right now, but it's a very wealthy area in I guess the south of France or down there somewhere, where they somebody tell me in the chat why I'm not thinking of the name of this place. But anyway, they have added on, because the real estate is so valuable. They have added on to that area, Monaco. Why
was that in my brain?
They have literally added on. Okay, and you can see what they've done there. Okay,
but that's an island, isn't it?
And so,
is it?
Maybe it is. Maybe Monaco. Yes.
Peninsula.
Yeah, but it's Monaco. So they've added on, and this is just a couple of examples. And this is the most valuable real estate in the world, is places like Manhattan, Monaco, you mentioned Dubai. Okay, when it gets valuable enough, they figure out a way to add more of it
or go up, for example, right?
Okay,
how they have in
and
history.
And gold. Okay,
and
gold. If it gets valuable enough, they dig deeper.
I was just gonna say they'll mine more.
It is. There's more motivation to go and get more gold.
What are other assets that are similar? Because thinking through,
just you, Rachel.
I mean,
no, I'm serious.
Only they also.
You can't think there's nothing else.
But for real, that's what I'm saying. In reality,
it's what we call an inelastic supply. It's inelastic. It will not increase, no matter what. No matter how valuable it gets, it can't increase.
Now let's talk about some negatives that could occur, right?
Okay.
In I would say dreamland, but that would more or less be nightmare world.
Yeah.
Of government control,
which we have to think about.
So let's talk about what are the potentials on the horizon when it comes to government control with Bitcoin.
Well, the game theory of Bitcoin is what is keeping it alive. And let me explain. Once somebody owns Bitcoin, they are less likely to attack it. For 15 years now, the number of people that own Bitcoin, that have money invested in Bitcoin, in some cases serious money invested in Bitcoin, continues to grow around the world. Okay. You can look at the number of wallet addresses. You can look, and by the way, this is all accessible. The blockchain is an open book. Okay. It is a ledger that is an open book that anybody can go and see how many addresses there are, how much Bitcoin is associated with an address, when it last moved from that address to another one. It's all there to be studied. All this data is available, and there are people that study it. And so what the data shows is that the number of people that own a significant amount of Bitcoin, the number of people that own one whole Bitcoin, continues to increase. Okay. And so think about it. If you're in the government, the United States government, and you own some Bitcoin, are you going to outlaw it? You see, that's the game theory.
So it's like, if you can't beat them, join them.
There you go. Even though it threatens their power.
It really does. But I think that's something I'm so excited to kind of see how it plays out, I feel, over the next, even 5 years.
It is a Trojan horse.
It's
a Trojan horse. It has slipped in. It has slipped in under the radar, just like the Trojan horse. And it's gotten inside the workings of the government, and it's spreading inside the workings of the government. Trump has endorsed Bitcoin. Harris has backed off on attacking Bitcoin.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay. And so I think, and also there's game theory between countries. There's competition. Let's say you're El Salvador and you say, listen, I'm going to embrace Bitcoin completely. I'm going to make it legal tender. I'm going to make it so that you don't have any capital gains tax if you spend it. I'm going to make my jurisdiction Bitcoin friendly. Now, all of a sudden, people with money start moving there and investing money. They're becoming the Switzerland of Central America. They were a you-know-what hole, 5 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, they're becoming the Switzerland of Central America. Aren't other countries going to see what they did? Aren't other countries going to? Yes. And by the way, they're already starting to do it.
It's
and so
evolution.
So this is the game theory playing out, that they see this thing happening. They know it really cannot be stopped. In other words, it's so decentralized around the world. There's so many nodes around the world. There's so many miners around the world that they can't. It's a thousand-headed monster. Okay, so they can't stop it. And now more and more of them are starting to embrace it. Okay. Now, the other issue is all the altcoins. Okay.
Good. I'm glad you're bringing that up.
And
because
so
it's like Ford is the Bitcoin, and then you've got all the other.
Yeah. So my position on the altcoins has always been, show me one that succeeds, and then we can talk about it. There have literally been 10,000, maybe 20,000 now, attempts to invent a better Bitcoin, to improve the mousetrap. Okay. Literally 20,000 of them. And they have all failed. Every single one of them has failed.
Because it's something that's created that can't be.
Okay. Well, I think there are a number of reasons why they fail. I think one reason is Bitcoin just has so much network effect and has so much traction that it's difficult to overthrow that. That's one thing. The other thing is all of these altcoins, people know who created them. People are suspicious when there's a creator involved in the project, the quote project.
Yeah.
And, is this just a scheme to make money? And all of them have proven to be that. All of them have proven to be pump and dump schemes.
Just like in anything, right? I guess it would be survival of the fittest in the digital world as well.
They have just they've just proved to be scams. I'll put it that way. So, whereas Bitcoin, the gentleman who invented it, A, we don't even know who he is. B, we do know he or she disappeared and hasn't moved their Bitcoin. They have 1 million Bitcoin that Satoshi controls.
Of the 21, they have
1 million of them. 1/21st of it, right? A huge amount.
Yeah.
Right?
So now really it's just, now that makes it the scarcity even higher.
Exactly. Well, anybody that loses their Bitcoin, like let's say you lose your 12 words, that's a donation to the rest of us that have Bitcoin.
Well, how long does that take to kick in? Like, you know what I mean? If you
so
let's say you can't access your account, let's say and it's gone. You give it the 3 tries, and then after that,
it's not gone. It's still there.
Okay.
His Bitcoin is there.
Okay.
It just hasn't moved.
Okay.
And so what people have deduced from that is that he's either dead, he or she is either dead, or he or she destroyed the words many years ago because they didn't
Or
want
it's just
to.
a timing element.
Well, maybe they didn't want to make it look like it was a get rich scheme for them to get rich, so they burn the keys, right? So if they burn the keys, they can't. There's no way they can access the Bitcoin. And the way the encryption works, that's why they call it cryptocurrency. It is the odds of guessing somebody's 12 words or 24 words. You can use 12 or 24. The odds of you guessing the correct words in the correct order are astronomical.
Which makes it
They
cryptic.
can't break it. They can't break it. Okay. And so that's why, even if all the king's horses and all the king's men try to get Satoshi's million coins and try to move them into their account, they've failed for 15 years. They haven't been able to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that also demonstrates the security of the network. Okay. The fact that this, this honeypot is sitting there
That's a good way to
with
put it.
literally 1 million Bitcoin, and nobody has been able to take those for themselves, right? Shows you the security is pretty damn good.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, because that's billions and billions of
Now,
dollars. Right
so
now.
maybe it's not about hacking the system, right? The digital system, but more about the control and the legal regulation that could come into play. So what are your predictions for that?
Okay, so again, this is where the
prediction.
game theory is playing out. It's already starting to play out. Whereas people that were pretty negative about Bitcoin, a few years ago, people in the government and so forth, more and more of them are coming around and being positive about Bitcoin. Funny thing, maybe their constituents own some of it. Maybe they own some of it.
There's always a rhyme and reason.
And now that BlackRock has jumped in with both feet, we know that BlackRock has a huge amount of influence in politics, with the government, with the deep state, if you will. And so now that they are whole hog behind it, and let me show you, there, right there. See that chart? Let's bring that up. That's the spot ETF cumulative total. I think there's 11 of them. And so that's how many Bitcoin are in these ETFs. Okay. So I'll ask people that are watching. I'll ask people that are watching this right now. Would you bet against that chart? Okay. So that's a question right there. Now,
because this is when it was announced with
in January.
Yeah,
it started.
So you see
that. All right. And so with BlackRock in the game, by the way, the BlackRock IBIT has the most of those. Has probably 70% of those is BlackRock. So anyway, with BlackRock involved now, and Larry Fink is outright telling his investors, you need to put, an allocation into Bitcoin. And they manage $10 trillion. Okay.
When before, just a few short years ago, he was against it. But it was
get a little closer.
But it was, I'm sorry, it was the consumers, it was the people that they were coming to their manager saying, hey, I want to buy into this, and they're like, yeah, we don't offer it. And then so eventually BlackRock was like,
I think he this is funny. Lizzo at a Harris rally, if Kamala is elected president, the whole country will be like Detroit. Oh, that was terrible. They tried to back out of that a little bit, but yeah, that was a mess. But anyway, this is just showing you that when there's enough momentum behind something and people with money behind something, you probably need to start taking it seriously. Okay. Now, Carlos has never been pro Bitcoin. I'd like to hear him comment, if he will, if he's still watching, what he thinks now, years later, what he's thinking about Bitcoin. But I try to study, what are the attack vectors? What can bring Bitcoin down, and what are the unknowns? And there's two things. There's one, okay, what can just kill it completely? And the second thing is what can affect the value of it, because a lot of people are concerned with the value of Bitcoin
because one of my questions for you was, what are your thoughts on the transfer of it taking title, I guess, of being the strongest asset in the world, or at least in
our Michael Saylor thinks it's absolutely going to happen, and
it would be world leading because that's one form of currency.
Well, see, that's the thing. another
anybody
thing
can
that
have
people
access
don't
to.
factor in is this is a worldwide thing. This is accessible to
Yeah,
billions
if
of
you have
people.
the internet, you can.
If you've got a cell phone, you can have access to Bitcoin. Okay, so billions of people can access this. All right, so that's, first of all, that's the market. You could make a legitimate argument right now that we don't have any more than maybe 1% penetration. So we've got 99% growth to go.
Really?
Okay, so, and also we have a fairly small penetration into, let's say, billionaires and decamillionaires and so on. They're just starting to come in now with BlackRock. Okay,
Yeah.
they've gotten the green light, and it takes time for it to go through these
everybody to jump on
family
board.
offices and all that. They have to do their due diligence and all that. They didn't do it right in January. They didn't jump in January. They're going to wait for this thing to have a
That's the
track
thing you
record
gotta
for a while, and then they're going to go through all the hoops and so forth. I think most of the big money is going to start flowing in after the first of the year, January, February, March, something like that. It's going to start flowing in. And so when that starts happening, you can have the price move quite a bit fast. Okay.
And you can
So
see that kind of here, once
yeah,
April,
and
when
this
things were
thing,
changing and
yeah,
BlackRock was starting to buy up more of the EFTs. You
and
see that
so
else.
let's see.
It's emotion, it's emotional purchasing.
Carla says, I think the same as before, but I've been wrong so far. Okay. All right. So what I tell somebody who is skeptical about Bitcoin, and I told some people this years ago.
What would you say?
I said, listen, buy yourself 2 Bitcoin.
I remember you
and when the price doubles, sell one of them, and you've got all your money back. Then keep the one. Right?
I should have listened to you.
You see what I'm saying?
Back years ago when you said to buy the one, I did finally listen to you.
You bought one?
Not a whole.
Okay, but you're getting close.
Hopefully.
Okay.
I have to check.
All right.
But
so here's the thing. There are going to be very few people that are going to own one whole Bitcoin in 10 years from now. Very few. Howdy, folks. How much would it cost me to purchase one Bitcoin? I know nothing about it. Always been a metals guy. Right now, it's about 66,000, 67,000, somewhere in there.
Coin.
Yeah.
But you can purchase a nominal amount. If you were to say, hey, I want to purchase $500 worth.
You can purchase $100 worth.
What is the appropriate terminology then for that in ETF?
No,
not an ETF.
You can buy shares in the ETF. I bet, or you can just buy some Bitcoin. You can buy $20 worth of Bitcoin. So there's a link in the description of the video to my Bitcoin page. Go ahead and take a look at that, and that will give you a lot of that information. In metals, see, here's the thing. Gold has been doing great, okay, because everybody knows that the Fed is going to have to print a bunch more money here pretty soon.
Do we think the dollar's going to disappear?
They're going to have to debase it, was what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to debase the dollar further. So everybody knows this. So this is why gold is getting more valuable. We might have another spike in real estate. All assets might start spiking up, okay? Because if they start debasing, printing currency like crazy, everything, all the fixed assets have to go up.
I think if they do that, we have a way bigger concern than we'd like.
Well, the concern is anybody that is saving in dollars, it's just getting diluted.
Yeah.
And anybody on a fixed income, they're going to get the shaft. I mean, this is what happens when you have a lot of printing. So, I can't predict what's going to happen short term, but I can say that based on 15 years of studying this, I think it's going to continue to grow. I think the number of people that have Bitcoin is going to continue to grow. Agreed. I think big money people are going to start coming in, and I think that's going to change the dynamic. And by the way, the 4-year cycles are right. It's right on cue. I was going to say,
we just had.
It's right on cue. If this cycle is like last cycle and like the previous cycle and like the one before that, our high will be in probably January or February of next year. That'll be our peak of this 4-year cycle. And then we'll have a pullback. And then, we'll go sideways for a while after the pullback. And then, a year or two later, we'll have the next halving and we'll start running up again.
So let me ask you this. Right now, we're currently in the 60,000 mark for purchasing one coin.
Yes.
Do you feel one coin could exceed $1 million within the next
10 years?
Decade? Okay.
10 years. Sure. Absolutely.
based on history, what you've seen thus far?
Oh, absolutely. Look at the charts. I mean, absolutely. It's either going to be worth $1 million or it's going to be worth zero
Yeah.
for some reason. And I can't think of the reason that it'll be worth
I feel
zero.
the same. It's
I
gonna be
mean,
one
there'd have to
extreme or
be
the
a
other.
major bug in the system. There'd have to be something that would crash the network.
An economic reset is my only thing.
Well,
where
that
they
wouldn't
would
even
have to
do it.
just
That wouldn't even do it
shut
because
down.
well, if they shut down the
everything.
internet, it would be Mad
Oh,
Max.
no, you know what? I forget the lady. I'll have to remember. And maybe I'll type it in the comment later on. But there's because I love to listen to, you know, obviously all these different podcasts and shows and such. But there's one lady who talked about what control there would be is if, let's say, they would crash the internet, and then okay, the government has safe access. There's a big virus out there. It's crashed the internet. It's attacked everything. Everything has to be reset, the whole world or whatever. But having access to the internet again, be able to work, access your banking or anything else, it has to be a government safe site. Like that's the only safe internet access. And in order to access that site, you have to have a government ID.
Yeah.
Have to, so there starts the control of the whole new
See,
world
I don't
order.
think that there'll be enough cooperation around the world to do that. See, the internet's worldwide.
Who says you have to cooperate? It could be something that's forced.
Well, the United States could shut down the internet for the United States, but they can't shut it down for everybody.
But this could be
I don't think they're gonna. But I don't think they can do that. I don't think people will cooperate enough. I think there'll be places like El Salvador and other places that are just going to say, you know,
yeah, we're going to do our own
thing. And also again, the game theory. I think that these people are starting to buy Bitcoin. I don't think they want to do something to kill Bitcoin.
That's what I was thinking too. I think the only thing is like you said, it's going to keep going up, or it's going to be completely.
Can Rachel give a shout out to Der Stifle? He's going to be kicking himself for missing the show.
Oh, my buddy. Hi, Der.
He had some Bitcoin a while back, but I don't know. I think he may have sold it.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. Interesting. Okay, so any other concerns? Because
no. So I mean, I think I went down my list. I wanted to, you know, pick your brain, and we talked about what it is. We talked about how to custody it.
Let's put a bow on the 4-year cycle before people get the wrong idea.
Oh, and I've got one last question.
So people might say, okay, I'm going to wait for the big pullback, the next pullback. See, here's the problem with that. And this is why I didn't do that the last couple of cycles. Even though I knew there'd be a pullback, I didn't try to sell at the top and buy back again. Because first of all, I got to pay capital gains. And then you really got to have good timing to make that make sense.
Yeah.
And the main reason is I'm not sure that the 4-year cycles will continue. I'm not 100% sure. In other words, we might go up through January and February. We might have a very small pullback, and then we might just start going up again. We might not have.
So I see what you're saying so the halvings will always continue, and a 4-year halving, real quick, is when
the supply gets cut in half. Right now, 450 Bitcoin are created each day. 450 new Bitcoin. Okay. When the next halving comes, that'll just be cut in half, 225, right?
So again, adding to the scarcity of
there'll be fewer new Bitcoin for new investors to buy.
To mine.
To
mine and buy, right?
Well, yeah, they have to be mined for them to buy it.
Yeah,
it has to come into the supply.
Got it. Because I know people that have mined.
So this is another key point. So that point is we don't know that there'll be a big pullback. So if you're waiting for a big pullback and it never comes, all of a sudden you got to buy at a higher price. So that's a bad outcome. All right. So let's say that the supply is 225 Bitcoin at the next halving. Okay. These guys with these ETFs are buying thousands of Bitcoin a day. Okay. They're buying more Bitcoin right now than is being produced. Okay. Right now. So people say, well, how come the price isn't going astronomical right now? Well, because there are OGs that got in early that have a lot of Bitcoin, and some of them are selling their Bitcoin to buy a boat, to buy a house. They're, you know, but here's the thing. At some point, those OGs that some of them might have thousands of Bitcoin. Okay, if you got in early and you were mining with your computer, you might have thousands of Bitcoin. At some point, they're going to run out of Bitcoin to sell. At some point, they will have.
They're going to want to hold something.
Or sell it all or whatever. But the point is, they can only do it so long.
But there's only so much it's being played with.
And if the supply that's coming in isn't even enough to supply the ETFs, much less anybody else that wants to buy it.
I love it.
Then when those guys run out, and see, that's what I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, but I know they're going to run out.
When's the last halving?
In 100 years.
It's every 4 years.
Yeah. But the last one's like 2140 or something. It's like 100 years from now.
Okay.
Because remember, it's cut in half each time. So it's going to get to the point where it's really like small amounts.
Got it.
And it'll be even smaller amount. And then till finally it gets to 21 million and then it's done.
So it won't be in our lifetime.
No. But it'll be a very small amount.
We'll see some historic movement.
Well, because I think that what's going to happen here is people are going to wake up and they're going to realize. Let me just read the comments from this guy, and tell me what happened with this guy. This will be right on point. Previous replies. Okay, here. Let me get it to the right place here. Okay. Here, this guy starts with I'll say dipshits. What the heck? Only dipshits whose money is easily parted and the con men scam them, own Bitcoin. Just like that. Be shit. You are spewing, blah, blah, blah. Then I replied to him, you should study Bitcoin a bit. Clearly you don't understand it. I gave him the link to my page, right? And then he replied again. Then I said, again, you should do some research. For 15 years, Bitcoin has been the best performing asset ever. Now big money folks like BlackRock are getting involved. And then Bitcoin is your idea of security. Now that's funny. What makes you think Harris did not work at McDonald's? Anyway, so they're going to go on and on. But here's the thing. These people can say what they want, but clearly when they say some of them said it's a Ponzi scheme and so on and so forth, they don't know the definition of a Ponzi scheme. They don't know how a Ponzi scheme works. This isn't a Ponzi scheme because we don't have a guy named Ponzi who created this thing, who's taking money from some people to pay off somebody else and so on. So that's a whole different thing. This is simply an asset that people are trading. That people are choosing to buy and or sell, and it's an open market, just like gold or anything. It's just people see it as having value, so therefore they buy it and they hold it for a period of time and then they sell it.
Speaking of value, Matthew Sherwood, excuse me.
Okay.
The volume is already at the bottom, in my opinion. However, volume of demand will ultimately dictate price. Correct, just like real estate.
Yeah, and again, we have something that is worldwide. This is something that a lot of people are not wrapping their head around. The addressable market of this asset is how many people can have it. Most people in third world countries can't get a bank account. But they can have Bitcoin.
That's what's so interesting about it.
They're not going to dare to buy gold because they know that'll be taken from them.
It's a worldwide currency.
Correct. And it's liquid 24/7, 365.
You can
gold is really not very liquid.
Nor is the dollars in your bank account that you have to empty.
Well,
you could use your ATM card.
There's friction.
But you can't go and take everything out on a Saturday at 4 p.m.
Correct. There's friction also when you want to send some of that to your buddy in Europe. How much are they going to charge you to wire that?
It takes time.
How long is it going to take? Will they even do it?
It's boom, done.
Correct. And so it's liquid 24/7, 365. You can't say that about real estate. Okay. It takes a while to sell real estate and settle on it and get your money and all that. Right.
Best.
And now how easy is it for you to transport real estate from this country to another country? Impossible.
I mean,
it's not transportable.
A barge. But no, you can't. That's true.
Okay. So if you need to leave for some reason, right, a tyrannical government, and again, we're talking about billions of people around the world, some of which live in a tyrannical government.
But they still have
we might
access to this
eventually
currency.
hear, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Not too far off. We'll
if
find
you
out.
have to leave, what can you take with you? People that were fleeing from the Holocaust, they had to sew things into the lining
And
of their
that's the thing
coat.
that's crazy is
I
it's
mean,
not far-fetched. It's something that has happened in history.
correct.
Could happen again. The change
Correct.
of currency. We're still not using denarii or whatever coins, back.
They don't last.
from
They don't
So
last.
and again, almost like 100-year cycle that we're seeing that should have been like COVID.
Michael Saylor
Right
talks.
now,
Michael
1930.
Michael Saylor talks about that when he talks about real estate and Bitcoin, the comparison, and he talks about the maintenance and upkeep on real estate. He talks about the taxes. He talks about all of that, and he runs through all the numbers, and he compares it to Bitcoin. Whereas Bitcoin, the Bitcoin that I have right now, which I actually lost in a boating accident, but the Bitcoin I used to have,
What?
you didn't hear I lost all my Bitcoin. I actually lost it in a hurricane accident. That's my news story. But that's what Bitcoiners say, that they don't have any Bitcoin.
Oh,
You don't want to.
Did you see me thinking to myself like, what? Remember, there's blonde up here.
You never want to admit.
Oh my gosh!
You never want to admit that you have Bitcoin.
No.
There's something called the $5 wrench
I
attack.
got so sad for you for a minute.
Hey, there's something called the $5 wrench attack, right? Where they buy a wrench and they come.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
All
It
right.
makes sense.
All right. So I mean, so that's the thing is he talks about the maintenance, upkeep, all that stuff. If you have Bitcoin and if you don't lose those 12 words, you could hand them down through the generations. You could literally have that Bitcoin for 1,000 years and there's no maintenance. There's no taxes.
You don't have to cut the grass or clean the gutters.
There's nothing.
No painting, flooring.
Correct.
None of that.
Correct. You just have to watch your purchasing
power go up. It's not very fun. Yeah.
And see, this is what we talk about purchasing power, because that's the important thing is, does it maintain and or increase your purchasing power? See, but the US dollar, we're guaranteed to lose purchasing power. If you've got $50,000 in the bank, you're guaranteed 5 years from now that you're not going to have $50,000 worth of purchasing power. You're going to have 45 or 40 or whatever it is. And so we know that it's eroding, your purchasing power is eroding away. And Michael Saylor would make the argument that even with real estate, your purchasing power when compared to Bitcoin is eroding away.
The point.
Okay. Because right now, and we had live streams, and I know we have to wrap pretty soon, but we had live streams here where when Bitcoin was $10,000, okay, we had a debate. Should you buy a steel Rolex Submariner for $10,000, which at that time they were $10,000, or should you buy one Bitcoin?
I've heard. I think I've either seen it. I think I remember.
Okay, we had that discussion. We had that discussion, and a lot of people said they'd buy the Rolex. Okay, fine, that's fine. Now you have the Rolex today; it's still worth about $10,000, but the Bitcoin's worth $66,000. Okay. So that's a perfect example of purchasing power and maintaining your purchasing power and or increasing your purchasing power.
The return on your investment.
So Michael Saylor equates Bitcoin to energy. When you work, when you expend energy and you do something, that energy has a value, right? You're doing something, you're creating something, it has a value. And if you want to store that value, the whatever you did, whatever you produced, now I want to store it. Okay, let's say I built something and I sold it to somebody and he gave me US dollars. Now that energy is in those US dollars. Okay. And what he sees that as an imperfect form of storage. He sees it as a storage that has leakage. It's leaking. Right. He thinks of everything from an engineering standpoint.
Love it.
Right. There's leakage.
I like it so I don't have to think about it like that.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So there's leakage.
So how are you going to maintain control of that power and put it into something else that doesn't have the same type of leakage?
So what he's saying is, if you put that energy in Bitcoin, it doesn't lose, and it doesn't
leaking.
There's no leaking.
But if it loses value and crashes to zero, then there was a big gaping hole.
Well, yeah, exactly. But
However,
obviously he
from
doesn't
history
think,
standpoint,
obviously he doesn't think
it's
that's going to happen.
there
Yeah.
might be a little pop here, but he'll band-aid it up because it keeps going up, right?
Yeah, well,
Am I-
and
am I
people
using
talk
good
about people do talk about the
analogies?
volatility of Bitcoin, and that is something that you have to have. You have to have a strong stomach. You
It's a
can't.
risk. There's
Well,
always a risk when you're investing.
I will tell you, after being through almost 3 full cycles now, 4-year cycles,
Yeah.
that the first one is difficult. When you see your purchasing power drop 80%,
Yeah, that's gut
um,
wrenching.
you know, if you take that seriously, and if you don't have a long-term view, it can shake people out. And I think this is what the big money people do. Like, we just had a pump up to 69,000 and now it's pulled back to like 66. What they're trying to do is they're trying to shake people out of their Bitcoin. Okay, so the Bitcoin goes up. Now all of a sudden a whale comes in and
Quick,
starts selling.
sell. It's gonna, yep.
Well,
And then
and he manipulates it down some, and then other people that aren't in control of themselves start panicking, and they all
and they'll
start
sell,
selling.
and
And
then
now
they're
that
behind the scenes
whale
saying,
is buying it.
"Me more."
The whale is
Yeah,
gobbling it up.
but
Right?
that's business, that's market, that's
And
economy, that's
correct.
the
And
way survival of the fittest goes in any
that's
facet.
that's correct. So what's happening with a lot of these pullbacks is, I am convinced that it's whales trying to manipulate the market as best they can. Obviously, they can only do so much, right? Because it's an open market. But if they can time it right and dump a bunch of Bitcoin and get the price down, 5 or 10% or even 20%, they'd love to get it down 30%. Then they buy it back and rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a stair step. It goes down, then it goes up, usually more than it went down. Then it goes down a little more, then it goes up. And so at the end of the day, if you look at it, a year or two down the road, it's always higher. I'll put it this way, there's no 4-year period in Bitcoin. If you bought Bitcoin and held it for 4 years, there's no scenario where you didn't make significant money. If you bought it and held it 1 year, if your timing was bad and you bought it at the top and then we had a drawdown and then you sold it, right, you lost money.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not for the faint of heart.
But you just have to wait. No, it's not.
It's for people that.
But what is that's worth it?
Well, I would say that real estate's pretty safe. I mean, it's not it's as safe as you probably can get, because you can always live in the place, right?
If you can afford to keep it.
If you that's the thing, if you can afford to pay, but you got to live somewhere, right? So I would say real estate is relatively safe investment. Gold is pretty safe, but again, you've got the security issues.
I think that's what makes Bitcoin so exciting, though, is that it's, there isn't,
you've really got
mystery,
you've got to stretch. You've got to stretch to try to find something better. You got to reach. You got to, it's not, and again, I would love to hear why I'm wrong. Okay, because I don't have to stay in Bitcoin. Assuming I had some Bitcoin, I could sell it today. I'd have to take the hit on capital gains, but that's okay. It's 15%. But I don't see somewhere better for me to put the money.
I mean, I'm real estate, I'll sing that tune all day long, although it is interesting to hear other people's opinions as to what the future holds with that as an investment. But then I think from a digital currency aspect, I mean, think about it. We're using digital currency technically already with our ATM cards and everything's online. But from the Bitcoin standpoint,
this guy says, did you see the story of the guy that happened to be driving with his life savings and the police pulled him over and seized? There are millions of stories of people's wealth being seized.
My great-grandfather on the Eastern Shore, he would drive around with a paper bag with like tens of thousands of dollars in the back seat in a brown paper bag. Because he was scared to let the bank. I can kind of see where my family comes from.
I don't blame it.
Yeah. And imagine if he were to crash or something. You know what I mean? It's gone.
It happens all the time. And this is another thing that Michael Saylor talks about when he talks about gold. He talks about all the times that the gold was seized over the years, right? All the different examples of gold being seized. And, it's been happening for thousands of years. Okay. And this is why the thing I started with was this is the first time in human history that there's an asset that you can self-custody without much effort and keep it secure to where nobody can seize
Nobody
it
can
from
get
you.
it. Nanny, nanny,
Okay?
boo, boo.
Nobody
You can't
even
get
needs,
it. But
nobody even needs to know you have it.
Correct. Unless there's some type of legal change that comes into play.
They still can't take it though. You have to give it to them.
Well, what if they? Yeah, I was gonna say, but what if they're? Yeah.
But
unless there's, you hand us your Bitcoin now, or you go to jail.
Bitcoin, yeah, that's what they can do. They can threaten you. They can put a gun to your head and all that. And if you give in and give them the words, then yes. But again, they don't even need to know that you have it in the first place. And if you're smart, they won't know how much you have, even if they know you have it. They won't.
That girl said is if there's the government control of the internet, and you'd have to know who's doing what on what website with the internet. That's the only way I can foresee.
Yeah, but they can't. Even though the Bitcoin ledger is public and all that, it doesn't say who owns it. Okay. And if you did it right, if you bought it right and secured it right, there's no reason for them to know how much Bitcoin you have at this point in time.
That's true.
Okay. You can move it around. You can do different things.
And if you know there's some regulation coming, quick sell.
Well, yeah. Or just go to El Salvador.
That's true too. They'll have their own little economy.
See,
there
are going to be competitive places. There are going to be places that embrace Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That want you to come there.
It's so interesting.
And I think it's going to be the U.S. I think the U.S. is going to want people here because we're already doing a lot of the mining in Texas. It's helping their grid. By the way, they talk about how much energy Bitcoin uses. It's actually helping the grid in Texas because what it's doing is helping balance the grid. Because what you have is a problem with wind and solar, that it's intermittent. Okay. So what Bitcoiners have done is they've gone to the grid operators and they've said, listen, when you have excess energy, because it's a real sunny day and everybody's not, using enough of that electricity, we'll buy it. We'll buy it cheap. We'll buy it, but we'll buy it cheap. But at least they're buying it. Whereas before, what the grid would do with that electricity? Just put it into the ground.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Totally wasted. All right. So now Bitcoin is taking wasted energy, monetizing it, paying the company, the electric company for it.
Yeah.
So now the electric company can build more solar panels and more wind to make the system more robust.
It's a whole cycle.
Okay. So now you've got that incentive structure in place that is making Bitcoin more relevant.
From a residential standpoint, though, having those facilities close to homes, I've heard how loud they are because the fans.
Well, yeah. But again, they can put them places where
you're secluded, but
most of them are in remote places. And that's the other benefit of mining Bitcoin is you can do it somewhere totally off grid. So what they're doing in Africa is they're going to small villages that never had any electricity, but they have a stream nearby that's running down the mountain or whatever. That place where they have the gorillas, they did one there. And so they put in a small hydroelectric thing, right, that generates electricity 24/7. And what they do there, same thing, is they're giving all the villages lights and all that stuff, a refrigerator, which they never had. Okay.
Let us exploit your territory. We'll give you food and water.
Well, they're giving them modern, things. And again, they're mining Bitcoin with it, which a portion of that money goes to the village, right? So you got a village that had no electricity at all.
I see it.
That now all of a sudden has electricity. And they're getting some money. And Bitcoin, all it needs is a satellite link, uplink to be able to sync with the network.
The internet.
Okay. It doesn't need to be, connected. It doesn't need to be on the grid. And see these small villages would never be able to have electricity because they're too far away.
Like that to begin with, had they not.
Well, they're too far from main
being able to
places where there's electricity.
Yeah.
They're not going to run all those lines. It's expensive, right? And so it hasn't been feasible
Excuse me.
financially until Bitcoin came along. Now all of a sudden it's feasible to build that.
That's
Right.
so cool. So it's helping communities. Yes, there's always some negatives with anything, right? And I just kind of hit on those a little bit. But think about the benefits that it's also providing to this community that didn't have.
Correct. I mean, the biggest problem, for these people that believe that climate change is a catastrophe, which I don't believe. I think climate change has been happening for thousands of years, and I think it's fine. Yeah. But here's the problem is if they're worried about carbon, when in these third world countries where they're burning dung and wood and all this stuff, they're creating a lot more carbon than we do. We live a lot cleaner than they do in all these third world countries. We're talking billions of people. If they give them electricity that is generated by water that is clean, relatively clean, right there, you're addressing that carbon problem big time, because you're taking the people that are really creating it and you're fixing that issue. In India and all these places where they burn wood and they do all this to cook, right? That's how they cook. Of course, the kids get cancer and all this stuff, right? So there's a lot of problems that this can solve and that it is solving. And so that's another reason.
I don't think it's the country. I think it might be.
How can any not?
Smaller.
Oh, yes. There are
within
billions
the
of people. There are literally billions of people that use less electricity than my refrigerator uses right here. Literally, yes. In other words, the amount of electricity that my refrigerator uses.
I just don't have it.
Most people in Africa use less than that. They're lucky if they get enough to charge their cell phone. Okay. And so this is a situation with literally billions of people. And a lot of people don't know this. They don't know that we're the exception, not the rule. Having electricity like we have, this is not normal.
Luxury.
This is not normal.
No.
Most people, in these third world countries,
most humans
don't
on
have
the planet Earth
in Europe, they
living
have it
without running water and electricity.
Even in China, there's a ton of people.
It's very minimal and controlled,
and a lot of times it cuts out. It cuts out, for hours at a time.
We're blessed.
Correct.
God bless
Correct.
you.
All right. Well, we've touched on a lot.
I know we've been talking and talking and talking. So I think at some point we will see Bitcoin and real estate marry, and we might be able to see some purchasing of real estate with Bitcoin. What do you think?
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I dig every aspect of it. So if I would buy it without my bank knowing about it, wouldn't that be a trail for the crazy commies to trace? Well, what you do is you buy it, you move it into self-custody, and then if anybody ever asks you, you just say, hey, I forgot my 12 words.
Which would be the truth for me.
A lot of people do forget. There's a lot of there's about 4 million Bitcoin that they say have been lost, that people have lost access to.
And
out of the 21
there's
million.
no timing of, well, essentially, I'm sure essentially within hundreds of years, they'll figure out a way to obtain it.
No, they can't. That's the point. That's the thing. If you lose your words, you're done. There's no 800 number for you to call.
Help! But remember that.
That's personal responsibility. That's the personal responsibility.
But that's why they have third-party systems that you can.
If you want, if you're on the
struggle bus with
anybody that would like me to hold their Bitcoin for them, I'll give you an address.
Speaking of which, half of it. But this has been fun. Thank you for letting me pick your brain. I'm excited to share this with my people in my neck of the woods.
You need to get to 1 Bitcoin as soon as possible, because pretty soon.
Come on, who wants to sell or buy some real estate in Maryland or Pennsylvania?
I can't remember what I
missed. So we're the same.
Let me show you your website.
My website?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, show me my website. I haven't seen that.
That's it, right?
That's it. Yeah.
There's her website. RachelSmithRealtor.com goes to that. RachelSmithRealtor.com.
Yeah.
And check her out.
I'm doing a little video
here. Yeah, check her out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm happy to answer any real estate related questions, but I am licensed in Maryland and Pennsylvania primarily.
Yep. And you're going to be able to move this This place here too, right?
Yeah, as soon as you're ready.
Okay.
It'll
All right.
probably sell before it even hits the market because these are pretty hot.
Yeah, they don't come up very often, these units.
Uh-uh.
Yeah. All right, so
All
we
right.
are done, and thank you everybody for watching. Rachel Smith
Thanks,
and I
guys.
talk about Bitcoin. There's a link in the chat to my Bitcoin page. Check it out.
Yay! Bye. Thank you for having me.